This is the moment where democracy either wakes up or sleepwalks straight into authoritarianism. Because what you're about to see isn't a policy disagreement, it isn't standard political theater, and it sure isn't some routine oversight hearing. What just unfolded between Senator Patty Murray and Attorney General Pam Bondi is a flashing red warning sign that the rule of law is being bent, warped, and weaponized to serve one man's will. And if we shrug, if we normalize this, then we become complicit in the unraveling of our own freedoms.
We're joined by the Vice Chairman of the full committee. Senator Murray is recognized.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Attorney General Bondi, we are in a deeply alarming moment where law and order is being replaced by chaos and corruption and really whatever Trump wants. And your department's independence and its capacity to do its job have eroded before our eyes. We have seen respected career officials who've been fired for doing their job. Thousands more are being pushed out with your buyouts and the threat of mass firings, and entire divisions are being eliminated, and grants have been canceled illegally. So I have questions about how and why those decisions are being made, and importantly, whether you're adequately resourcing DOJ to do its job. But before I turn to my questions, I do want to raise my alarm about the troubling pattern of trampling basic rights. Detainees, including U.S. citizens, being shipped overseas without any due process. Elected officials are detained for conducting oversight, and a U.S. senator gets tackled to the ground for asking questions at a press conference. This is not the country I know or the values I believe in, and I hope that colleagues on both sides of the aisle will agree with that. Now, to the questions. Yesterday, and I know that Senator Van Hollen raised this issue, a former DOJ attorney filed a protected whistleblower complaint accusing Deputy AG Emil Bove and senior DOJ leadership of defying court orders, including through, quote, lack of candor, deliberate delay, and disinformation, unquote. The complaint also accuses this administration of firing the whistleblower for, quote, telling the truth to the court. These allegations are deeply concerning. Now, I know you said that you can't discuss the case, but can you confirm that you agree that this administration should follow court orders?
We will follow court orders, Senator. The entire administration will follow court orders. The problem arises in the district courts. All these district courts throughout the country are tying our hands. And here's how we will follow them when we get to the United Supreme Court.
I need to ask
we're winning.
A number of questions.
And so, yes, we're following the orders of the court.
Let me ask my questions. Can you confirm?
Welcome back to True Liberty, where we cut through political fog with moral clarity, with historical memory, and with the unapologetic belief that democracy is worth fighting for. If you're here right now, it's because you understand something fundamental, that truth isn't passive, justice isn't optional, and silence is never neutrality. Subscribing to this channel isn't just clicking a button, it's joining a growing community of people who refuse to be gaslit into submission, who refuse to let the powerful rewrite reality, and who believe that a better, fairer, more humane America is still possible. If you're one of those people, stick around. Because this hearing wasn't just chaotic. It exposed something deeper, something structural, something dangerous. Let's get back into it, because this next part matters.
Can you confirm you will not allow any conduct like what is alleged to continue at the DOJ?
I'm not going to talk about anything that's alleged. What I will talk about with you, hold on, you asked me a question and I get to answer it. What you asked me, alleged conduct that's part of a pending whistleblower lawsuit that was filed on the eve prior to Emil Bove's hearing today.
I'm not asking about that
suspicious.
Case
Hold on, let me keep going.
Attorney
I would
General
run through a
Bondi,
wall for
my
Emil
time,
Bove
Mr. Chairman,
and
and I
Todd
would like to
Blanche.
continue with my questions. I have very limited time. Thank you. I just want you to confirm for this you will not allow conduct like that at the DOJ. Yes or no?
I will always support and defend Emil Bove, and I will defend Todd Blanche. They are two of the finest people I know, and two of the ethical people I know.
Let me keep going here. Now, in April, DOJ abruptly terminated over 300 public safety grants that had already gone through a very rigorous and fair and apolitical application process with no explanation. This is funding to investigate and prosecute drug trafficking, to support foster care kids who experienced abuse or neglect, to expand access to forensic exams to prosecute violent crimes like sexual assault. These really senseless cancellations have already forced public safety organizations to cut employees and services. So I want to ask you, when you cut off the community-based violence intervention and prevention initiative funding, were you aware it is used to prevent and reduce violent crime?
Yeah, Senator, you weren't here for that, so I'm going to have to repeat myself. We have cut grants. I think we've cut 6%. But if we have cut a grant that you feel should not be cut, please reach out to me. I will personally look at it. We've turned multiple grants back on. Okay. We have an appeal process. But if you want to come to me directly, I would be happy to sit down with you and look at that and help you.
I'm happy. I appreciate
Again, we're doing everything we can.
Okay, but let me just ask you, when you cut off the Expanding Access to Sexual Assault Forensic Examination grant, were you aware that that grant helps our authorities prosecute rape and sexual assault?
I have no idea about that specific grant you're talking about. That's why I said if you want to come sit down with me, I would never cut a grant intentionally that has anything to do.
Those recipients on the other end across the country.
Can you give me the details of that grant?
I can absolutely do that, and my staff will get that to you. But those are two critical ones that I just wanted to ask you about today.
Again, we've turned many grants back on, and we'll continue to. If you want to call me, and we can discuss them with you.
Okay, in your budget request, you propose consolidating the Office on Violence Against Women into the Office of Justice Programs. In 2002, Congress actually codified the office as a permanent, separate, and independent office to implement the Violence Against Women Act. We did that to make sure that violent crimes against women receive the necessary attention, expertise, and resources, and to give the office a strong, independent voice within the Justice Department and federal government. Now your department wants to fade that into the OJP, which violates the intent of the law that we passed. It makes grant programs less effective, and it places a lot more barriers for victims and services they need. And I see that you're cutting the office's resources by about a third. So will you commit to us, the Appropriations Committee, to follow the law and maintain OVW as a separate grant entity?
I will follow the law, but I will not keep that as a separate grant entity. You and I can disagree all day long on what the law is.
Well,
that's being consolidated into the Office of Justice Programs. So I'm not going to cut, let me answer, I'm not going to cut anything that's going to hurt violence against women.
Not my question.
It will eliminate.
I'm asking, just for your information, Attorney General, in 2002, we codified the office as a permanent, separate, and independent office. So that you need to go back and take a look at that. I know my time is out, but I thank you very much for the time.
Senator Murray lays out what should shake every person in this country. A Justice Department hollowed out, expertise purged, grants slashed, career officials exiled, and civil liberties trampled. This isn't a left-right issue. This is the blueprint of autocracy. And when Bondi responds, you can practically hear the machinery of denial grinding in the background. First contradiction, Bondi assures the committee the administration will follow court orders. But in the same breath, she claims the real problem is district courts, meaning ordinary judges across America who have the audacity to enforce the law. That's not just doublespeak. That's contempt for judicial independence. That's the kind of rhetoric you hear when a government wants obedience, not oversight, deference, not law. Then there's the whistleblower. A DOJ attorney says leadership defied court orders with deliberate delay, disinformation, and a lack of candor. Fired, allegedly, for telling the truth to the court. And Bondi? She refuses to even acknowledge the conduct, but leaps to defend the officials accused, before the investigation even runs its course. That is not accountability. That is loyalty politics, pure and simple. This is how systems rot, when loyalty is to power, not principle. Let's reframe what's happening here. Conservative media will paint this as bureaucratic cleanup, efficiency, eliminating waste. But that narrative collapses the moment you look at the grants being cut. We're talking about funding to prosecute drug trafficking, support abused foster kids, expand forensic exams for sexual assault survivors, investigate violent crime. These aren't fringe programs. These are the backbone of community safety. Cutting them undermines law enforcement, undermines victims' support, undermines justice. So when Bondi shrugs and says, we cut 6%, or I didn't know about that grant, that's not administrative oversight. It's erasure. It's systemic harm hidden behind bureaucratic language. It's an ideological project masquerading as fiscal management. And here's the part that should absolutely not get buried: the Office on Violence Against Women. Congress created it separately, deliberately, to protect survivors and ensure specialized expertise. Bondi wants to absorb it into a larger bureaucracy, despite the law, despite the purpose, despite the need. And when Senator Murray reminds her of that law, Bondi says she'll follow the law while simultaneously planning to ignore the law's explicit structure. This is the broader pattern. Undermine independent institutions, blur accountability, centralize authority, hollow out protections that don't serve the executive agenda, and then dismiss every concern as a disagreement. It's a page straight out of every government that has dismantled democracy from the inside out. And let's zoom out even further. Why does this resonate? Because public institutions are one of the few counterweights regular people have against concentrated power, corporate, political, or ideological. When a Justice Department is weakened from within, the people who pay the price are not the elites or the donors or the insiders. It's the worker whose labor rights rely on a functioning legal system. It's the survivor who needs forensic funding. It's the immigrant who needs due process. It's the journalist trying to ask questions without being tackled by security. It's the public servant punished for speaking up. This isn't about one hearing. It's about a deeper, engineered vulnerability in our democracy, one created by years of telling people government can't work, so that when those same politicians sabotage it, they can claim vindication. It's about manufacturing inequality by stripping institutions of the capacity to protect the public. It's about erasing systemic power dynamics so everything looks like a personal failing instead of a structural breakdown. And yes, it's about the politics of fear. Fear is the fuel of authoritarian systems, and confusion is the smokescreen. If you keep people overwhelmed, misinformed, reactive, you can reshape society without them noticing. But there's another truth that Senator Murray lands beautifully, even in limited time. Compassion, law, due process, and protections for the most vulnerable aren't luxuries. They are the infrastructure of a society that wants to call itself free. And when those foundations erode, the entire structure shakes. This moment demands vigilance, courage, and clarity. That's why conversations like this matter. That's why communities like this one exist. If you're with me, if you're tired of watching institutions get gutted, tired of seeing power insulated from accountability, tired of seeing basic human dignity treated as expendable, then stay loud, stay engaged, and stay aware. Because authoritarianism doesn't arrive with sirens. It arrives with excuses,